Alright, so this is going to be a creation of a badge tier list in Paper Mario Darkstar Edition based on a curse file. First, I'm going to establish some ground rules. The ranking of the badges in the game is going to be based mainly on a standard curse file, but file codes will also be considered as part of ranking if there is other utility. I also want to be clear that just because a badge sees no use in a curse fight itself does not necessarily mean that a badge will be lower ranked. There are tertiary uses of certain badges that cannot be ignored, and that will be considered. Obviously, this is my own opinion, and whether or not you agree or disagree is completely up to you. So, with that out of the way, we will get started. As you're going to see, we have already ranked some badges immediately. We have ranked the cosmetic badges, these are just the attack sound effects ones. And I've also ranked the 0 BP quality of life badges. These are Speedy Spin, I Spy, Money Money, Haste Step, Peekaboo, and Defense Spotter. And then as for the curse badges, obviously they get ranked at the very top, because at least one of them will almost always be on. So, with that said, we're going to get started from there. And we are going to go in relative badge acquiring order. So, for the first badge that we have Power Jump. And this is obtained in the exact same spot as it is in base. So, Power Jump is a C tier badge. And the reason this badge is C tier is because it is good early on when you lack other attacking badges. However, it falls off after defeating Buzzer due to the advent of early pit strategies. And you are going to hear early pit quite a lot in this whole recording, because that is a major thing that changed the playing field when it comes to curses. So the next badge is Danger Saver. Oh, and I should also explain, Power Jump is the same as it is in base. So you jump once on one enemy with a lot of attack power. It is a base of jump plus 2, and that's 2 jumps. So when you have regular boots, it is 4 damage, it's 6 with super boots, and 8 with ultra boots. Next is Danger Saver. This is the badge that is normally obtained where Close Call was in the base game. So this is still in the prologue. And Danger Saver reduces your move costs by 1 if Mario is in danger. And this, conveniently, also ranks right next to Power Jump, right in C tier. The reason why this badge gets C tier is because of Immortal builds. Immortal builds improve this badge, and its accessibility in the prologue means it is a safe badge to fit early on, especially when you don't have other 1 BP badges. But with that said, it does get C tier because it is more disposable compared to other 1 BP badges. If you need other utility, you will generally drop this badge. The next badge on the list is Hammer Throw. Hammer Throw is yet again a C tier badge, and the reason why is because it got 3 buffs in Darkstar. The first buff is that its badge point cost is now only 1 instead of 2 from the base game. And you still get the same effect as in base. You get to you hit one enemy with the hammer no matter where that enemy is. But there are buffs. Like I said, it now only costs 1 badge point instead of 2. In addition, it now has an initial damage value increase. It is base of hammer plus 1 now. So with the regular hammer, you get 3, and then 5 or 7. But in addition, it's got the additional throw element that was added in Darkstar. This is neutral against grounded enemies, but it is stronger against aerial enemies. And usually it'll get 1 extra damage there. And the reason why this gets a C tier similar to Power Jump is because Hammer Throw actually has more applicable use cases thanks to its ability to hit enemies without making direct contact. It's notably a safe move to use against aerial electric enemies such as Sparkerine and the Dark Aspirant, the latter though specifically only within the Dark Rush, without needing to use Zap Tap. So it's a good way to save on badge point investment. The next badge is Berserker, and this is going to be where we go through the Star Piece badges. So Berserker is obtained from Merlot and costs 3 Star Pieces. And Berserker gives you +2 attack, but it makes Mario uncontrollable. He will randomly alternate between jumping and hammering. But in addition, he also becomes status immune too. And Berserker is a D tier badge. The reason why Berserker gets D tier is because it can let you defeat the Prologue Magikoopa at a lower level than what would otherwise be possible. Without Berserker, you need level 4 to accomplish that. But with Berserker, you can succeed it at only level 2. Despite its free BP cost, it does cost 0. It's severely held back by its downsides. Though there is another good use for it, and that is if you're playing on a lower curse level, it's great against Tubba's Heart. And that's because you can only jump on Tubba's Heart, you can't hit him with a hammer. But that said, it's still severely held back by its downsides, and that's why it only gets D tier. The next badge is HP Drain, and this costs 5 Star Pieces. HP Drain is a B tier badge. And the reason this gets B tier is because even though you lose 1 attack, HP Drain can allow Mario to play a lot more aggressively using immortal builds. The badge can help you recover the few remaining HP needed every turn in conjunction with Cake Regen in order to get back to full HP every round. One thing to note about HP Drain is that it did get nerfed in a way. You can't use it when Mario's max HP is 5 or less, because the badge will specifically not work. And HP Drain does work the same as it does in base otherwise, so it decreases Mario's attack by 1, but it restores 1 HP per attack. And multi-strikes and AoE attacks can restore more points of HP at once. Mario's HP can recover by a maximum of 5 per action using this badge. The next 2 badges that we're going to go over are Heart Finder and Flower Finder, and we're going to go through both of these together because they are in their specific tier for basically the same reason. And unfortunately, they are both F tier. The reason why these are F tier is because they're basically a waste of badge points with curses. Only the pit can make use of them, and even there, they're outclassed. So there really isn't a point for them, and both of them cost 7 Star Pieces each, and they cost 3 badge points. I haven't been mentioning BP costs much, but for HP Drain, that is also 3 BP. So yeah, Heart Finder, Flower Finder, they're going to be at the bottom of the priority list if you're aiming to push curse fights to the limit, which is what this tier list entails. The next badges are going to be Happy Heart and Happy Flower. And both of these have 2 copies available in the game. But one of them, for the purposes of this video, is what we're going to consider. And as such, Happy Flower and Happy Heart both get top of C tier. And the reason this is because Happy Flower benefits early pit strategies, and the reason for that is because it can limit your item usage. When you're going through the pit as early as possible, These badges greatly benefited as they help limit your item usage, and they can limit it so much that you can make it a lot farther than you'd otherwise be able to go. Notably as well with Happy Heart and Happy Flower as well, they synergize well with Strange Leaves when they are the primary restoration during Chapter 3, because you can use this badge to get back to full HP after item usage. Strange Leaves, as a note, were changed in Dark Star. They now invert your stats. So they set your HP and FP to the amount that's missing. So if you have 3 out of 50 HP remaining, then the Strange Leaf will set you to 47. So that is a very powerful effect if you can use it right. The next badge on the list is Star Gift. You might know this as Pretty Lucky from the base game, but it was changed too. And in the case of Star Gift, what its effect is very simple. All it does is double passive star power regeneration, and this is for 8 star pieces, similar to the Happy Heart and Happy Flower that Merlot has. And the second copy of Happy Heart is still in Chapter 5, on the way to Raphael the Raven, and the second copy of Happy Flower is in Flower Fields by hitting the trees on the way to Petunia's room in the order of middle, right, and left. Back to Star Gift. This, just like with Happy Heart and Happy Flower, is also a critical early pit strategy badge, because it reduces the amount of turns it takes to recover a full bar of star power. And you can also synergize this one with Stellar Shield as a way to reduce damage taken by 1 every turn. In a manner of speaking, it can be similar to Defend Plus before Defend Plus. But it is more used in early pit strategies. So, that's the reason for C tier placement on that. The next badge is a new one, and this one is called Flower Health. Flower Health reduces your move costs by 1, but in return, they now use HP instead of FP. And this one costs 12 star pieces. And for its ranking, you might be surprised to see this one, but this one is also a C tier badge. There's going to be a lot of C tiers early on. But the case of Flower Health, it also changes interactions with other badges, certainly, and those change to make them take effect at max HP instead when you have this badge equipped. But with enough cost reduction and HP drain, this is the best synergy for Flower Health. You can use Flower Health to effectively use stronger attacking moves without drawbacks, thanks to it allowing you to always recover off the HP you consume in place of FP. Something to keep in mind, however, is that it does hurt some badges when used. Perfect Rush, for example, does not at all go well with this badge. And the reason for that is because Perfect Rush specifically checks you always having full health, and Flower Health will consume HP. So, do not use Flower Health with Perfect Rush. It's not going to work well for you. Another thing to be careful about with Flower Health is that you can use it if you have a low enough amount of health remaining to have it set your HP to 0 if you're not careful. So make sure that you work around that too. The next badge that I'm going to go over is Zap Tap. And Zap Tap is also 12 star pieces. And for simplicity, Zap Tap does exactly like what it does in the base game. It grants Mario permanent electric status, and most enemies that make direct contact will take 1 damage when they attack while this badge is equipped, and this badge also lets Mario safely jump on electric enemies. And I should note that Flower Health, by the way, is 3 BP, and Zap Tap is 4. So Zap Tap is unchanged from the base game. And Zap Tap is a B tier badge. Zap Tap gets a lot of value as a defensive badge. It's great at disrupting enemies that are capable of attacking multiple times in one action, such as Junior Troopa 3, who can now attack twice. The ability to safely jump on electric enemies is also a good bonus when using Zap Tap. However, it is worth noting that as you progress further through the game, enemies start to become more capable of simply just bypassing this effect, even if they make direct contact. There are definitely still some enemies later on that can be affected, but a lot of enemies just straight up become immune. For example, Final Bowser is just straight up immune in the second phase after you get Peach Beam, so it's not going to work well there. The next badge is Flower Saver, and this one has 2 copies. The first copy is for 15 star pieces, and the second copy is after you obtain the Ultra Boots, you can go to a new area between chapters 2 and 3, and Tornado Jump to hit the block that gives you this second copy. And Flower Saver did get buffed in comparison to the base game. In the base game, this badge costs 6 BP to use, but in Dark Star, it only costs 5. And its effect is still the same. It gives -1 move costs permanently. And this is a C tier badge. It helps further decrease your move costs if you feel you don't need to invest in anything else. You'll generally see this in a Perfect Peril build, because Perfect Peril builds can consolidate the build a lot. And that's why it can be used there. The reason it only gets C tier though is because it's held back by its higher cost when compared to the conditional FP Saver badges. The next badge that we're going over is Stellar Flowers. Stellar Flowers is another new badge. This costs 16 star pieces, and it allows you to use star powers with your FP. The FP cost is 4 times the SP cost, and these costs are unaffected by anything that affects FP costs. Also, keep in mind that Refresh does not recover FP while this badge is equipped. Stellar Flowers is a B tier badge, and this is a high B tier. The reason this badge gets B tier is because it contributes hugely to absolute longevity builds. And if you can combine this with Pity Flower, you can create a near impenetrable wall that can outlast high damage output without the usage of many items, just so long as you can survive. It even has offensive use too, with its ability to spam star power abilities such as Starstorm. You've seen this used in fights such as Tubba Blubba EX on 9x difficulty. Stellar Flowers was a huge contributor to that. And Stellar Flowers is also great in the rushes because you need longevity builds there. The issue with Stellar Flowers is that it's generally limited beyond those longevity builds, and it doesn't get too much use before you get access to Smooch for completing Chapter 5. But it is not something that you should ignore. Next up, we have Stellar Shield. This costs 18 star pieces. And this reduces incoming damage by up to 1/3 at the cost of star power. The damage reduction is proportional to the amount of star power that you have, and it consumes 1/4 bar of star power for each point of damage it negates. In regards to the fractional reductions, and we will note fractional reductions here as the other ones come up, Stellar Shield applies after Flower Shield, but before Dark Shield. So in terms of fractional reductions, it is second. And Stellar Shield is a C tier badge, and it ranks just above Hammer Throw. Stellar Shield is good for damage reduction if you're not needing to rely on your star power, and you can combine this with Star Gift, as mentioned, to effectively get a form of Defend Plus before actually getting Defend Plus. It's also a good badge to use to ensure that Dark Shield always stays active. But do note that in this latter role, it now faces competition with Stellar Nova, and it also requires investment in both Stellar Flowers and Pity Flower if you do need to rely on star power abilities with this badge. That said, don't underestimate this reduction. It can make a huge difference, and if you do get into Dark Shield range as a result of Stellar Shield, you will get Dark Shield's benefit too. So that is a good thing to consider. But it gets only C tier because it is more dependent on other badges, whereas Stellar Nova really isn't. Next up, we have Mega HP Drain. Also, Stellar Shield costs 3 BP, and so does Stellar Flowers. So, I didn't mention those, but those are those costs. The next badge is Mega HP Drain. This is basically a stronger, but also harsher HP Drain. So, it decreases Mario's attack by 2, but it restores 2 HP per attack, and it has the same restrictions as regular HP Drain. So, multi-strikes can restore more HP at once, but Mario cannot recover more than 5 HP per action with this badge. And, just like regular HP Drain, this badge does not work if Mario's max HP is 5 or less. And this is a C tier badge as well. This ranks just below Power Jump. The reason why this gets C tier is because the loss of 2 attack makes this badge inferior to its regular counterpart. It does stand out, however, because it can be used to restore 2 HP with 1 instance of damage. If an enemy cannot deal more than 22 damage per turn, you see this with fights such as the Dark Traveler and the Dark Revenant. And if Mario can only deal 1 instance of damage per turn, Mega HP Drain becomes superior to regular HP Drain because of that ability, since it can greatly benefit the Immortal build used there. So, to explain, if an enemy can deal 99 damage at the maximum, what you can do is you can use Dark Shield, Perfect Stand, and Cloud9 together to reduce that damage to 22. You can use Dark Shroom Cake regen combined with this badge to get Mario the exact 22 HP of recovery needed in order to get back to full HP again. This badge's use also expands in file codes with earlier access to Dark Shroom Cakes. If you didn't know, in a file code such as Can't Win, where you get all the badges to start, certain badges become other items. And in the case of the Smash Charge badge found in Koopa Bros Fortress, you can use this badge, that badge to get an early Dark Shroom. And then you can keep that in inventory, keep it checked in at the shop. And then when Chapter 4 comes along, you can make Dark Shroom Cakes much earlier than otherwise intended. So that's why Mega HP Drain gets a C tier ranking. If we were ranking based solely on the standard curse file, this would go down to a D tier placement. But its expanded use in file codes is enough to push it up into C tier. Next badge that I'm going to go over is Flower Fanatic. This one costs 20 star pieces as well, and it costs 8 BP to equip. And its effect is that it gives -2 move costs permanently. And this one kind of hurts, but this one goes to the top of F tier. This badge is unfortunately outclassed, and it's outclassed purely because of that badge point cost. 8 is a huge investment when you only get a maximum of 30 BP. But let me be clear, Flower Fanatic is not in F tier because of its effect. The effect is great. It's the badge point cost that makes it not worth it. Even Flower Saber actually outclasses it because Flower Saber costs less. So it's really tragic, but it is the true reality for Flower Fanatic. But one thing to note is that while this is not being mentioned in this video, in a badge stone run, Flower Fanatic goes from F tier to S tier. Because in a badge stone run, all badges cost only 1 BP. And in that regard, Flower Fanatic is miles away better than most of the other ones. So, don't ignore Flower Fanatic in a file code run. But you can absolutely ignore it in a standard file. The last badge that Merlot has is Crazy Heart. Crazy Heart is basically a powered up version of Happy Heart. It restores 3 HP automatically every 2 turns in battle. And I should have mentioned that, but Happy Heart and Happy Flower get that same type of restoration every 2 turns, but it's 1 for each one equipped. And something else to note about all 3 of these badges is that they do proc at the end of every action turn for Mario. And this means Hustle can proc this multiple times in 1 turn. And you've seen that I've placed it in C tier. The reason this badge gets C tier is for similar reasons. Another thing that Crazy Heart benefits though is Immortal builds, especially in all badge file codes such as Can't Win, because help from the fractional reductions and earlier Darkshroom cakes can also help Crazy Heart in that regard too. And Crazy Heart is 4 BP to equip and costs 22 star pieces to get from Merlot. I don't think I mentioned Happy Heart and Happy Flower, but each one of those is 2 BP to equip, that is to say. So basically all 3 of Happy Flower, Happy Heart, and Crazy Heart are ranked at top of C tier for pretty much similar reasons. And that's because of early pit mainly, because these badges are hugely important in limiting your item use. The next badge is Dizzy Attack, and now we're finally in Chapter 1. So Dizzy Attack lets you spin into an enemy in the field to inflict Dizzy on the front enemy. And this is found in the same spot as it is in Chapter 1, in a red question mark block on Pleasant Path after beginning the chapter. And this one is right at the bottom. It's got no use because most fights are triggered as a result of cutscenes. The pit also has really no use for it either, because outside of floor 1 and the pit bosses, no floor has only 1 enemy. And in the case of pit bosses, you actually have to interact to trigger the fight. So this badge has no place. The next badge, after Dizzy Attack, is obtained first in Koopa Village. And that is HP+. And there are actually 4 copies of this badge in Dark Star, whereas in Base there's 3. And its effect is the same as in Base. It increases Mario's max HP by 5 for each one equipped. Also worth noting, Dizzy Attack has 2 BP. Costs 2 BP to equip. And then HP+, as well as FP+, which gets ranked in the same spot alongside it, both get the same C tier placement. In the case of HP+, the 4 copies are obtained first off on top of the stump in Koopa Village, obtained by using Cooper in Chapter 1, in a branch room of Forever Forest off the main path during Chapter 3, from Ralph's shop after completing Chapter 3, and from Ralph's shop again after completing Chapter 6. And in the case of HP+, it is C tier because these badges give Mario extra HP which can allow him to survive a very strong attack if 50 HP by itself is not enough to do so otherwise. It's also good for combating multi-strike attacks in the case that Zap Tap can't interrupt him. And in the case of FP, the first one is still in the same spot. After obtaining Bombette, you use her to blast a wall outside of Koopa Bros' fortress leading to a pipe. The second badge, though, for FP Plus is where Mega Rush is in the base game, so that would be inside Tub of Lava's castle during Chapter 3, where you push the pendulum clock, and then the badge is obtained in a hidden room on the left. And then the other two are in the same areas as HP Plus. So Ralph's shop for 150 coins each after completing Chapter 3, and then after Chapter 6 for the fourth one. In the case of FP Plus, the badges give you extra FP, allowing you to use more attacks for longer. It also synergizes well with Pity Flower to extend the length in which an item such as Kooky Cookies can fully restore Mario's HP after an incredibly strong attack, such as Phalanx Guy's charge attack. In file codes, FP Plus is also handy in the Pit of 100 Trials, as it can give you enough FP to use Up and Away into Stellar Nova Up and Away in conjunction when using Stellar Flowers. But beyond that, they are relatively niche, and that's why they only get C tier. Following HP Plus and FP Plus, we have Refund. Now, normally you would think that this badge belongs in F tier, and unfortunately, I gotta burst your bubble on that one. Refund is D tier, and it ranks above Berserker. So, Refund lets you get some coins back if you use an item in battle. The amount of coins refunded is equal to 75% of the item's sell value. So if an item sells for 100 coins, Refund will get you 75 if you use it in battle. This badge synergizes very well with Flower Coins to extend its longevity. However, you can't rank it above D tier because this badge is basically useless in curse fights when you're not using Flower Coins, and we will get to Flower Coins much later. The next badge after Refund, since I don't have anything else to say on Refund, which is a 1 BP badge, by the way. The next one is Power Bounce. So Power Bounce lets you jump on one enemy continuously until you miss the action command. The initial damage value on the first strike is base of jump plus 1, meaning if you have a base of 3, which is the Ultra Boots, the first strike on Power Bounce deals 4. And then each following strike is 75% the strength of the previous, rounded down. This is the first nerf. But it still has its minimum damage value of 1. The second nerf is that this attack now caps you at 3 to 5 bounces depending on the enemy, where bounces will generally cap you at 3. Power Bounce still costs 2 BP, but it's now 6 FP to use in battle. And this is ranked A tier because despite the nerfs it received, Power Bounce is still very good against a single target, and this is especially prior to the completion of Chapter 6, when you don't have access to Mega Bounce yet. And that said, it does take more investment in order to make this badge better stand out. And this is not to knock against it, because this badge is still yucky good when used right. The problem is that you have to build a lot more around it, whereas in the base game, you can pretty much be brain dead with it. And it is also obtained at the same spot in Chapter 1. So yeah, Power Bounce, very good. And it's kind of a testament to its strength that it had to receive so many nerfs just to make it balanced. The next badge that we're going to go over is Smash Charge. And this is the same effect as in base, but it did get nerfed in that it now costs 2 FP to use in battle instead of 1, although it still has a 1 BP cost. And it is, as mentioned, obtained in the same place at the end of the slope stairs on the 3rd floor in Koopa Bros' Fortress in Chapter 1. This is a D tier badge. And this is actually a pretty low D tier badge. Under Berserker. This badge is good for helping you defeat Robotoad or Darkbones in early pit. And by early pit, I mean Chapter 2 pit, because you get access to the Pit of 100 Trials as soon as you defeat Robotoad. Smash Charge can also help with defeating the Emperor Beetle very early as well. But beyond that, it's not useful in curse fights itself. But that utility for getting into early pit is what keeps it out of F tier. And that's why it is a good badge in that sense. But beyond that, you're not going to use it. Following up, Smash Charge, we have the badges that are obtained from Ralph's shop after completing Chapter 1, starting with Multi-Bounce. And Multi-Bounce lets you jump on each enemy either until you miss the action command, or until you run out of enemies. You jump on all enemies in a row with properly timed action commands, and it uses base of jump for its damage. And this one is another one that kind of hurts. But this one's another D tier badge. This gets D tier because it is good against later pit fights, but just like with Smash Charge, it's not useful by itself in curse fights. The only potential use you could have for it is against Huff, but even there, it's not good. You can't use it to KO the Tough Puffs that he spawns because they do not have 1 HP at the base value. They have, I believe it's 5, if not it's 4. But they are a lot tankier, and that gets worse with curses. Next, we have Spin Smash. Spin Smash lets you hammer one enemy in front, and then that enemy gets smashed into the enemies behind it. The smash damage's base value is 1, but it gets multiplied by your curse multiplier, and then gets further increased based on the active attack buffs of the enemy that was sent flying. So an enemy that has +6 attack, for example, on Mega Curse will hit the enemies behind him for 9 damage instead of just 1, because you get 1 times 3 is 3, and then +6. And this is also 75 coins. Spin Smash is a C tier badge. And it goes above Danger Saber, but below HP plus and FP plus. This badge is great for punishing enemies that can receive attack buffs in battle. And notably, I mean attack buffs. Passive buffs will not make a difference. A high enough attack boost, however, on an enemy sent flying can actually make this move's smash damage comparable to even Quake Jump, which we will get to much later. The issue with Spin Smash is that it's limited in its scope, since not many enemies can buff the attack of itself or its allies. But one thing to also note is that you can also use Spin Smash to prevent Dark Bubbles from dividing in the Pit of 100 Trials. Another thing to note about the smash damage that I did not mention is that it pierces the enemy's defense, and it actually is capable of bypassing even most enemies that have unpierceable defense. The only unpierceable defense it cannot bypass is that of the Dark Replicator. So, if you're wondering why I did not use Spin Smash in Can't Win against the Dark Replicator, that is why. But still, in that scope, it is a really good badge, and it's really satisfying to use as well. And then the last badge, the second to last badge that we have against Ralph after completing Chapter 1 is First Attack. This increases the power of Mario's first strikes by 1, 2, or 3, depending on the level of equipment that he's using. So Ultra Boots, for example, will get +3, and Ultra Hammer will get +3, but regular ones will only get +1. And in the case of curse fights, this is another F tier badge. The only place where you could potentially see use for it is in the Pit of 100 Trials, but even there, you can make use of other badges without needing to rely on this one. And then the true last badge that I was going to mention for Ralph's Chapter 1 completed badges is D-Down Pound. Also, first attack costs 100 coins, and D-Down Pound still costs, I believe, 75. Yep. And first attack is a 1 BP badge to note. Also, I didn't mention Spin Smash costs only 1 FP to use in battle instead of 2. So that is a buff to it. But you're generally only going to have it cost 1 when you're using it anyways. So, something to keep in mind. D-Down Pound is the last of the badges that I mentioned. And this is Piercing Blow, basically. You attack one enemy with the hammer, and you pierce their defense. And this is a 2 BP badge, and it costs 4 FP to use in battle, so that was a nerf in comparison to base. That said, this badge is not F tier. It goes to C tier, because this badge is your best attack for dealing with Robotoad and Dark Bones in the early Pit of 100 Trials strategies. But with that said, once you get past both of those and you obtain a later badge in the pit, this badge just falls off completely. But you can't put it in F tier because that use is critical. But once you get past that point, there's just no point in it. Next badge is Shrink Stomp. So you attack an enemy with regular jumps using Shrink Stomp, and the targeted enemy is afflicted with Shrink, which cuts their attack in half. Shrink Stomp costs 1 BP to use, and 4 FP in battle, so that is a nerf. And this badge is also obtained in the same area as before. It's inside a chest in Toad Town Tunnels after completing Chapter 1. It requires defeating a blooper fight. And there's a reason why you never see me use this one. This badge is bottom of D tier. Right now, this badge is currently only saved by the fact that it helps you defeat Tubba Blubba and his heart on Mega Curse difficulty. Not Super Mega Curse, regular Mega Curse, without dropping the Curse difficulty in between. That said, we haven't yet gotten the Void Stone in Chapter 3, so we haven't completed the Pit of 100 Trials in Chapter 3 yet. If we do, this badge will fall off completely, because it will have no further use beyond that. Next badge, we have the first of the 3 Quake Hammer moves, and this is Base Quake Hammer. This is 1 BP, and it is obtained in the same area in Chapter 2, on Mount Rugged. One nerf that it did receive is that it now costs 3 FP to use instead of 2. But the Quake Hammer lets you attack all enemies on the grounded ceiling, and it pierces their defense. The initial damage value of it is 1 or 2, depending on whether or not you land the action command, and this is regardless of the hammer. So if you use even the Ultra Hammer with base Quake Hammer, it's only going to deal 2 damage at the base. That said, this is a B tier badge, and it ranks above Zap Tap and HP Drain. And the reason for that is because this badge gives consistent damage against all enemies with a low cost. It's great for use in later pit runs for clearing out enemies very quickly, and it can also deal with the Koopa Bros in file codes, as you saw when I completed Koopa Bros on Triple Curse in Kentwind. And that wasn't just me, it was someone else too. You don't see it too much, but its utility in pit cannot be ignored, and the pit badges are the most important, as you're going to eventually see. Following Quake Hammer, we have our first true defense badge, and that is Damage Dodge, and there are 2 of these in the game. The first Damage Dodge is obtained on Mount Rugged inside a chest, and the second one is obtained after you defeat Chapter 4, and it's obtained from Ralph for 150 coins. This is a 3 BP badge, and it's just like in the base game. If you successfully guard, it decreases Mario's damage taken by 1 for each one equipped. And in this sense, Damage Dodge ranks in B tier as well. This one goes just below HP drain, but it goes above Zap Tap. The reason why is because this badge functions very similarly to Defend Plus. While it requires more execution due to the need to use the action command while on defense. When successfully used, this effectively is a cheaper Defend Plus. It also gets use early on thanks to the first one being available in Chapter 2. It also has the same benefits as mentioned as Defend Plus, which we will eventually get to. But as you get further progression, it has similar downsides with the fractional reductions, meaning it will fall off once you get to that point. Still, it's always good to have that extra defense early on, especially when you are limited in your fractional reductions. Following damage dodge, we have Stellar Power. This is obtained on the road to Star Temple after obtaining Paracarry in Chapter 2, and this increases Mario's attack by 1 at the cost of Star Power. The Star Power cost for each boosted attack is 3/8 of 1 Star Power bar, and if you don't have enough Star Power, this badge will cause your attack power to go down. It is worth noting that this badge also does not increase the recoil damage from Recoil Throw. And this is a high C tier badge, similar to Stellar Shield. The fact that this is the earliest plus attack badge you can get means that Stellar Power finds decent use early on, even with low Star Power. That said, it can influence your playstyle negatively due to its drawback. It requires you to have to work around preventing that. And it also makes you have to get through fights without your Star Power unless you're relying on Stellar Flowers. And you also need Star Gift to help further mitigate its downside. Its need for more investment beyond itself is what holds Stellar Power back from further use as the game progresses. That said, it does only cost 2 BP, so it's very reasonable to fit early on. Following Stellar Power, we have Group Focus. Group Focus is not obtained in the same area. It's now obtained in the same area that you get the second Flower Saver, but it's on the Chapter 2 side. And this is a room that's located to the northeast of Dry Ruins. This is a C tier badge, as it allows Mario's partner to also use Focus. Certain badges, Flower Focus, Health Focus, those badges get the same benefit as if you were using it. But it does not get the benefit of Deep Focus badges. And this badge is critical in early pit for the same reason that Happy Flower, Happy Heart, and Star Gift were. And that is to allow you to get Refresh as soon as possible. It is the only Star Power ability that you get in Chapter 1 when you're doing Chapter 2 pit, so you can't get any of the others. That said, its usage, while not really good beyond just early pit, it's so good in that role that you can't place it lower. Next, we have Spike Shield. This is obtained in Dry Ruins, and this is just like how it is in base. It lets Mario jump on spiky enemies safely. It also lets Mario hammer front spiky or side spiky enemies to say safely as well. And this is a D tier badge. And it ranks, however, close to the top of D tier. The issue for Spike Shield is that very few bosses have the trait. Its scope is only with those bosses, and only when Mario needs to make direct contact. Beyond the spiky trait, it has no use. But with that said, there are fights in which it gets used, so it cannot be ignored. Redo of the tier list? Yep. Following Spike Shield is Power Smash, and this is obtained in Toad Town Tunnels, which also requires another blooper to be defeated. And Power Smash is the hammer equivalent to Power Jump, Its damage is base of hammer plus 2. And this is another F tier badge. Right now, by the time you get it, it's actually already outclassed. Power Jump is available earlier with equal damage and a higher scope, and we will get to it, Thunder Throw is stronger and also obtainable thanks to Early Pit. That said, right now it is F tier, but if the Voidstone gets obtained in Chapter 3, this badge will be able to move up to D tier because it would be your response to the Emperor Beetle, who has a lot of unpierceable defense. And then, starting with the badges that become available after defeating Robotoad, we have Defend Plus. And there are 2 of these in this game. They function just like how they do in Base. They decrease the damage that Mario takes by 1 for each one equipped. There are 2 of them in this game, unlike Base, where there's only 1. And a very nice buff that Defend Plus received is that it now costs only 4 badge points to equip instead of 6. Also, Power Smash is a 1 BP badge still, and Spike Shield is still a 2 BP badge. I didn't mention those, but now I have. As for Defend Plus's placement, I rank this one right next to Damage Dodge. Unlike Damage Dodge, this one gets value guaranteed. And the lower BP cost compared to Base also makes it easier to fit, especially earlier on. And it also sets itself apart from Damage Dodge since it doesn't require the action command on defense to get its benefit. And the reason why Defend Plus is being talked about now is because you can get one in Chapter 2. Because you can get one in the Dark Caverns by going to a room that acts as a shortcut towards the Temple of Darkness. You jump on a spring and go as far to the left as you can to find the badge containing this badge. The badge containing this badge. The chest containing this badge. Ugh, what am I talking about? And, like I mentioned, this badge is obtainable as soon as you defeat Robotoad. So you can have 3 defense going into the pit for the first time. But just like with Damage Dodge, this badge does begin falling off as you start gaining access to the fractional reductions. Since I've already ranked Peekaboo and Haste Step, the first True Pit badge that we get is Perfect Saver. Perfect Saver is obtained from floor 30 of the Pit of 100 Trials. And this is a B tier badge. This is bottom of B. This reduces move costs by 1 if Mario has full HP. And it is only a 1 BP badge. It's similar to Danger Saver in that Perfect Saver's accessibility early, thanks to Early Pit, makes it a generally safe badge to fit earlier on. It's also great in Perfect Peril builds, because in conjunction with Mega Saver, you can receive -4 move costs with just 2 BP invested. That said, it can't go higher than B tier, because this badge can be a bit more disposable too, even in Perfect Peril. If there's another critical badge needed, Perfect Saver is usually the badge that gets dropped. That said, its usage in Perfect Peril has been seen for good reason, and there's a reason why it does not get to be in C tier, because Perfect Peril is a really good build for this badge. And finally, we've got one of the big badges to talk about. This badge really defined the change of strats when it comes to curse fights, and that's Thunder Throw. Let me just first quickly decrease an image here. So Thunder Throw is a 2 BP badge that costs 5 FP to use in battle. This is the floor 40 pit badge, and it lets you attack one enemy with the hammer regardless of location. The initial damage value is base of hammer, unlike Hammer Throw, which gets that innate +1. But Thunder Throw still does have the throw element, making it stronger against aerial enemies. In addition to that, Thunder Throw also strikes the targeted enemy with a Thunderbolt that deals 4 additional damage. That damage is unchangeable, and it possesses the electric element. the Thunderbolt pierces defense and can also inflict paralysis. However, do note that the paralysis duration is 1 turn shorter with this attack when compared to other paralysis causing moves. And this badge is an A tier badge, and I'm very happy to say that. But this ranks above Power Bounce. The advent of early Pit aged Thunder Throw incredibly well. Because of that, you can obtain this badge as soon as you get the Super Hammer in Chapter 2. Its general utility and ease of use makes it a great all-purpose badge. And in the mid-game, this is the strongest attack overall that Mario can use, thanks to that additional 4 piercing damage. And unlike Power Bounce, Thunder Throw doesn't require nearly as much investment to make good because it's a good and strong attack independently. And even when higher damage moves do eventually come along, Thunder Throw's ability to hit anything from a range means it never truly gets outclassed completely. For example, Thunder Throw is still the attack that's used against the Dark Traveler in Chapter 9 because it is still the strongest move that can be used against him. Yeah, it's a really good badge, and never to be ignored. The next badge kind of hurts me to say because it is a pit badge, but it is Smart Stomp. This is another 2 BP badge, and it costs 7 FP to use in battle. This is the floor 50 badge of the pit, and you attack an enemy with a single jump, with the target being afflicted with the status they're weakest to. The base damage value is 4, 6, or 8, depending on your boots rank, and the base status turn duration is 1, 2, or 3 turns, depending on the rank of boots. It can inflict stop, dizzy, paralysis, shrink, or sleep, and it prioritizes high status chances. And the reason why this one pains me is because this is a D tier badge. This is one badge that did not age well due to early pit. Its ability to inflict multiple statuses in one slot is useful, but the thing about curse fights is that it's got a huge knowledge floor. It's, as such, generally better to focus on inflicting just one certain status instead. That said, because of that one slot consolidation, it cannot be placed in F tier even if it isn't seen very much anymore. The next badge is the floor 60 badge, and that is Perfect Rush. Perfect Rush is a 2 BP badge, and it increases Mario's attack power by 2 if he has full HP. This is another A tier badge, and this ranks above Thunder Throw. Perfect Rush is a very good badge to fit when you need extra attack. Maintaining full HP for this badge is quite reasonable thanks to Out of Sight, and while its best synergy is absolutely the perfect Peril build, combining with Mega Rush to give Mario plus 6 attack for only 3 BP, Perfect Rush gets a higher A tier placement because it's easier to slot into other builds, thus making it easier to use. And the fact that you can obtain it way before Mega Rush as well means you can even use it with Power Rush in earlier fights to make perfect danger builds. So it's stronger independently, but because it's only conditional on having full HP, it's avoided from S tier. That said, it's always a good badge to consider if you need that little extra oomph. The next badge to talk about is the floor 70 pit badge, which is Feeling Fine. This is yet another 2 BP badge, protecting Mario from being afflicted with status conditions, and specifically referring to immobilizing status conditions. It does not prevent Mario from losing attack or defense as a result of attacks. But a huge buff that Feeling Fine received is that it also protects the partner from being taken out of commission. And that buff right there is exactly the reason why this is an S tier badge. The buff that Feeling Fine received to protect the partner as well makes it one of the absolute best badges in the game. It synergizes with effectively every strategy, and it's basically mandatory if the enemy is capable of inflicting status, or, more notably, hitting the partner. Feeling Fine also turns boot leaves and mini sodas into better repel gels and hustle drinks, generally speaking, because they have compatibility with each other, whereas hustle drinks and repel gels don't. This allows you to be safe from damage and then get 2 actions on the following turn, and the only downside you suffer with the hustle invis item combo when using Feeling Fine is the +1 move cost that comes with using invisibility items. You don't have to deal with further increased costs or lowered attack and defense from sugar or bubble berries respectively from the invis items. So yeah, this badge is always one that is used as a result. If the enemy can inflict status, you're probably going to see this badge. The only real negative synergy is that if you use Feeling Fine, you cannot gain 2 turns of invisibility, which is possible by boosting a Boo Leaf with a Yoshi Biscuit. So that is the only real caveat, because Feeling Fine will consider that as a status to be cured, and it will cure it after 1 turn regardless. Still, that is a very niche issue, and it's not going to stop it from being placed in S tier. It's way too good. The next badge is the Floor 80 Pit badge, and that is Perfect Stand. Perfect Stand is another 1 PP badge, and it reduces Mario's incoming damage by 50% if he has full HP. And in regards to the fractional reductions, this badge is applied after Cloud9, but before Last Stand. And this is another S tier badge. And in fact, this ranks right alongside Feeling Fine in the ranking. Among the fractional reductions, Perfect Stand is the best one easily. Maintaining full health consistently is very reasonable to do, as you've seen with Immortal builds, and this badge alone can allow Mario to survive attacks that are capable of even dealing 99 damage in a single shot. The fact that this badge only costs 1 BP makes it very easy to slot into a build as well. And Early Pit means that it's not only obtainable in Chapter 2, but it can be put to use immediately against Toot and Koopa. The only negative synergy of this badge is Perfect Peril, but this badge is obtainable so early and is so useful throughout the whole game that even despite that negative synergy, it easily justifies its S tier placement. Following Perfect Stand, we have Head Start, which is the Floor 90 Pit badge. This one gives Mario 2 actions instead of 1 on the first turn. And although it is only 1 extra action, Head Start can allow you to execute strategies and move combinations that would otherwise not be possible. For example, being able to deal heavy damage on the first action and then immobilize enemies on the second action safely. For example, against the Dark Shield Bearer, you can use Head Start in conjunction with Triple Dip to use 6 items on the first turn. The main reason that Perfect Stand is held back is because of its 8 BP cost, and because of that 8 BP cost, it is a B tier badge. As such, if you're going to use Head Start, you have to be fully committed to it, but that is why it gets B tier. You see it used in the pit, notably, because of that ability to deal heavy damage and then inflict status in the same turn. And then there is no Floor 100 Pit badge because that is the Void Stone, which I will say now is the single most important item in a curse file. Being able to carry 20 items is huge for any curse strategy. And that actually is a perfect time to bring me to the Ralph badges for post Chapter 2. First is Sleep Stomp. This is a 1 BP badge that now costs 3 FP to use in battle. You attack an enemy with regular jumps, and the targeted enemy gets afflicted with sleep. And something that I didn't mention in regards to status in Darkstar is that status does not work on a chance-based system. If an enemy can be afflicted with a status, that status will work, period. The catch is that there's a limit to how many times an enemy can be statused in a given fight. and most of the time the limit is 2, but there are fights where there's only a 1 status limit, and other fights where the enemy is entirely status immune. But Sleep Stomp. This is an F tier badge. And the reason is because of how sleep status works. It now restores the enemy of the enemy's HP if they are still asleep, and the status gets cancelled if they get hit by anything. A status that can undo the damage you deal is not good, and it actually makes this badge outclassed by Mamar's star power ability, Lullaby. And I'm going to say now, Lullaby, even that, is niche. But it is definitely better because that move doesn't deal damage. But that is why it is F tier. It's basically outclassed immediately upon getting it. And it is also a 75 coin cost, for if you're curious. Going from a trash badge, that leads to Double Dip, which allows Mario to use 2 items in 1 action. This is a 2 BP badge, which is up from 1 in the base game, and it now costs 5 FP to use in battle. And this costs 100 coins to get from Ralph. That said, despite the nerfs it received to its BP and FP costs, the vastly expanded item pool, combined with the additional effects that certain items have, they make Double Dip arguably the single best badge in the game. The cost is very reasonable to accommodate, and it has positive synergy with essentially every build. There's really only 2 real reasons where you would not use Double Dip, outside of the condition where you just don't have it. The first reason is if you need no items at all, which is very rare. And the second reason would be if you specifically need Triple Dip instead. Double Dip is one of those universally applicable badges. You will pretty much always have it equipped. And that leads me to Dodge Master. So Dodge Master costs 100 coins as well, and is now a 1 BP badge to use instead of 2. And what it does is it makes the action command timing more forgiving. It increases the timing window from 3 frames to 5 frames. And this badge is B tier, above Quake Hammer. This badge is B tier solely thanks to its synergy with Mega Bounce. If you're not using Mega Bounce, you're better off not using this badge, because at that point it's just get good. But with Mega Bounce, this badge is akin to having 2 to 3 power pluses by itself, because it increases that consistency. If you don't use Dodge Master with Mega Bounce, you're going to feel it. And that leads me to Deep Focus. Deep Focus, of which there are 3 of them, increases the amount of star power restored by 1/4 bar for each one equipped, specifically only when Mario uses Focus. And it also increases the restoration of Health Focus and Flower Focus by 0.5 for each one equipped, and it also extends the boost for Power Focus and Defense Focus, which we haven't talked about yet, by 1 turn for each one equipped. And like I said, there are 3 of these available. The first one is inside Peach's castle on the 2nd floor, which Peach can put in the mystery chest for Mario to obtain after completing Chapter 2. There's the second one, which is to the left of the red station in Shy Guy's toy box during Chapter 4, where you hit a hidden red question mark block. And then finally, there's the one in Bowser's Castle during Chapter 8, where you go all the way to the left after cooling the lava flows, where you go up some platforms and hit the red question mark block to obtain that one. This is a C tier badge, and it ranks above Group Focus. This badge is similar to why Group Focus is in C tier. It helps restore Mario's star power faster, and it enables early pit strategies to keep star power topped off for refresh usage. And it also amplifies the effect of health and flower focus most notably, allowing them to be more efficient too. You will always be using Deep Focus when you're going through early pit, because it is so important to make sure that your star power stays topped off as much as possible. But beyond that, you're not going to really see it in curse fights. You see it in the Pit of 100 Trials during the Can't Win run, because there it is crucial. But beyond that, it doesn't have too much use. A badge that does have use, on the other hand, is Power Rush. This increases Mario's attack by 2 if he's in danger, which is 5 HP to 2 HP remaining. And this is a B tier badge, being ranked just above Perfect Saver. The expansion of Immortal build strategies improved the usage of Power Rush, and it synergizes very well with HP Drain in those Immortal builds because it combines effectively to give you a Power Plus that can also restore your HP simply for dealing damage. And Power Rush plus HP Drain actually do have the same cost as a Power Plus in this game, which is 4 BP, since Power Rush only costs 1, whereas HP Drain is 3. But with that said, it is harder to find usage for Power Rush outside of Immortal builds, due to the fact that Mega Rush overrides Power Rush. Perfect Danger strats are still possible, but once you get Mega Rush, you're always going to use Perfect Peril over it due to the stronger benefits that it gets. That said, it still is a good combo, so don't just pass it up. The next badge is Quick Change, a 4 BP badge, and it is obtained in the same area as in base, where after you get these super boots, you spin jump inside Merlon's house 3 times, and then the badge will drop. And this allows you to change partners without losing turns. And this is an S tier badge. And the reason this gets S tier is because, just like with Double Dip, it does have synergy with most builds. But the reason why it gets S tier is because being able to switch your partners around without losing any turns greatly benefits most strategies. The main reason you would not use this badge is because you only need one partner to get through a given fight. For example, only needing to use Bo for out-of-sight reasons. But beyond that, that is a limited scope in which it doesn't apply. But in the full scope, that one is one of the best badges to have. Following up Quick Change, we have D-Down Jump. This is basically the counterpart to D-Down Pound. You attack an enemy with regular jumps, piercing their defense. It is 2 BP and 6 FP to use in battle, which is an increase from 2 in the base game. Another nerf that D-Down Jump received is that it now has an innate -1 to its damage. So, with the super boots, D-Down Jump has the damage output of regular boots. But this is obtained in the same area as in base, which is in Tub of Lubba's castle during Chapter 3, where there's a bombable wall behind a red clubba on the 2nd floor. And in that room, spin jump on the upper right broken floor, and then use paracarry on the lower floor to obtain the badge. This is a D tier badge. The nerfs certainly did it no favors, but another reason why it is D tier is because of that limited scope. It's useful against Dark Bones and General Guy EX due to them having 8 defense. But beyond those cases, there are generally better options for when you need to pierce enemy defense. Thunder Throw, for example, although it only can deal 4 piercing, can still do the job very well. And that concludes Chapter 3 badges, which leads me to badges obtained after completing Chapter 3, of which I already went over the HP and FP+, so that really just leaves Pity Flower and Jump Charge. Pity Flower. This is obviously a new badge that was added in Darkstar, and what it does is, after Mario takes damage, he recovers FP equal to half the damage taken, which rounds down. And this is a 3 BP badge obtained in Ralph's shop for 150 coins after completing Chapter 3 and returning his calculator. So you have to return the calculator first. And this is another S tier badge. The reason this badge gets S tier is because it can restore a lot of FP simply for taking damage, and it makes it one of the best recoveries available without item usage. And I mentioned Stellar Flowers, but the synergy of this badge with Stellar Flowers can potentially make an infinite FP repository that's capable of completely walling out enemies that have predictable attacking scripts. Even without Stellar Flowers though, this badge has positive synergy with most builds. Even its weakest synergy, which is the Perfect Peril build, can still make use of this badge to get an instant full FP restoration at the cost of burning a life shroom. So an intentional fail of a hustle spell, for example, can also restore your FP for this purpose. And while, like I said, it is the most limited, it is still a good synergy to consider. The following badge is Jump Charge. This lets you charge your jump, and it increases the strength of it by 2 for the next jump attack. The universal charge nerf means that the maximum boost that you can get is +6, but this is a 1 BP badge that costs 3 FP to use in battle. And this badge is C tier, and I'm going to rank it just below Spin Smash. Regular jump charge is good against Huff and Puff and Huff EX because you want to limit how many times you attack him. With how infrequently you damage him, it gives you plenty of opportunities to set up. That helps jump charge find usage because it only costs 1 BP to equip, whereas the others cost more. But that's really about all that needs to be said about jump charge. It's C tier for that usage, because it is critical in that scope. But you're not going to see it much beyond that. Following up, jump charge, we have Power Plus, of which there are 2 of them available in Dark Star. This is a 4 BP badge, which is a buff from base. It's the same buff that Defend Plus received, where it only costs 4 BP instead of 6. And it increases Mario's jump and hammer attack powers by 1 for each one equipped. The first one is obtained in Chapter 4 by defeating Anti-Guy, and you open the chest that he's guarding to obtain it. The second one is obtained by completing the letter trading sequence. There is no lucky day in this hack, so the second Power Plus is there. And this is an A tier badge, and it actually ranks above Perfect Rush. Getting a consistent +1 attack for Mario with no downside is a strong effect by itself, especially in conjunction with multi-strike moves such as Dual Smash and Mega Bounce. The lower BP cost that Power Plus has compared to base also makes it more reasonable to justify its use too. And while it faces competition from the other plus attack badges, its consistency and lack of downside is what makes it stand out from its competition, and that's why it's ranked into very high A tier territory. Following up Power Plus, we have both Health Focus and Flower Focus, and these badges are, when equipped, they restore Mario's HP or FP by 1, and Deep Focus adds 0.5 for each one equipped for restoration. And the rounding is odd or even depending on the turn count. Yeah, it's dependent on whether the turn count is odd or even. And Group Focus can also restore Mario's HP when the partner uses Focus. And same thing for the FP as well. And for both of these badges, they're going to be ranked right next to each other, alongside Star Gift. The reason that both of these badges are ranked alongside Group Focus and Star Gift is because they are potent if you're aiming to get the Void Stone during Chapter 4, because it allows you to get all the way down to floor 100 without the use of any items. So you can save all your items for floor 100 thanks to these badges, whereas otherwise you would definitely have to use them earlier. But that said, you're not going to see them beyond aiming for that early pit clear. Following both of those is Ice Power. And Ice Power, it increases Mario's attack power by 2 against fiery enemies, and it also allows Mario to safely jump on fiery enemies with this badge. In addition, Ice Power also makes it so that all attacks that have only the jump or hammer element get tuned with the ice element. And this is to the right of the pink station in Shy Guy's Toy Box during Chapter 4, the same as the base game. This is a C tier badge. And just a sec here. Yep, there it is. Kind of referencing a picture that I have, so that's for wondering what's going on. But it ranks just above Flower Health. Ice Power, giving Mario's jump and hammer attacks an ice element, allows it to deal more damage against fiery enemies. And while it is helpful against those enemies, especially because it only costs 2 BP to equip, the issue with Ice Power is that it's held back by its limited scope. It doesn't really have use beyond fiery enemies. But with that said, it does have use to consider, which cannot be said for the first badge that you can obtain after completing Chapter 4 from Ralph's shop for 100 coins, and that's Static Stomp. This is a 1 BP badge that costs 5 FP to use, and this is F tier, unfortunately. And this has the same damage as the other Status Stomp ones, so you attack with regular jumps, but Static Stomp inflicts paralysis. And while paralysis is a better status to inflict than sleep, Static Stomp is outclassed because Thunder Throw does the job of Static Stomp better, even despite the former costing 1 more BP and having 1 less turn of paralysis. And just to add insult to injury and rub salt in the wound of Static Stomp, Thunder Throw is obtained earlier too. So by the time you get it, Thunder Throw is already outclassed it. So that's why it's F tier. The only reason you saw me use it against the big Lantern Ghost during the Can't Win run was pretty much solely to say that I used it. But it doesn't have much use beyond that. Following that Heartbreaker, we have All or Nothing. This increases Mario's attack power by 1 if the action command is successfully landed, but if you fail, then the attack power becomes 0. This badge does not affect first strikes as well, and this is also 4 BP, and it is for 100 coins. This is a B tier badge, but I'm going to rank it below Damage Dodge. This is a good plus attack badge to use when you don't have some of the other attack increasing badges that come up later. And in this sense, it effectively is another form of Power Plus. The problem with All or Nothing is that this one falls off as more plus attack badges become available. Its downside of dealing 0 damage can also really hurt if your execution is not on point. And that's also not good considering the fact that the best attacking badge is Mega Bounce, which we'll get to later. The fact that All or Nothing also now costs the same BP as Power Plus does it no favors either. And as such, because the best attack is Mega Bounce, as more plus attack badges become available, All or Nothing becomes one of the last ones you'd want to use. But during that interim, it is a good badge to consider, and that's why it cannot be ranked below B. After All or Nothing, we have Frigid Stomp. This is a 2 BP badge, which costs 100 coins to get from Ralph's shop, and it costs 7 FP to use in battle. This lets you attack an enemy with a single jump, and the target has their attack decreased by 2 for 3 turns. The base damage is 4, 6, or 8 depending on your rank of boots, but notably, this attack also allows you to safely jump on electric enemies or extreme fiery enemies, those which are too hot to jump on with ice power. Frigid Stomp is great to use as the attacking move against the unstable star, which is extreme fiery. And it's also good in the normal rush for weakening Huff's attacks in particular, because in that regard, it will also weaken the tough puffs. The issue with Frigid Stomp is its limited scope, and for that reason, it's a C tier badge. Following up with that, we have Last Stand. Last Stand reduces Mario's incoming damage by 50% if he's in danger, and this badge applies after all the other fractional reductions, so it applies after Perfect Stand. And this is obtained during the Chapter 4 intermission, where Peach can put it in the mystery chest for Mario to obtain. And this one kind of hurts for speedrunners. But in Dark Star, this is a D tier badge in curses. And this is because this badge did not transition well due to changes made in damage calculation. In the base game, this badge applies first when it's active, effectively halving the attack of enemies, which means a 7 attack gets halved to 3 with this badge in base, and then you start applying defense. In Dark Star, this badge takes effect after defense and other fractional reductions are applied. And while it's still useful to defeat Toadinator on Mega Curse difficulty, the issue is that it's not really good beyond that. It is good against Toadinator because you can use this badge to effectively lock him in the green form for the final phase of the fight. Following Last Stand, we have Power Quake. So this is the level 2 Quake Hammer badge, which means it deals 2 or 4 damage, and it's obtained in Chapter 5. This is 2 BP, and it now costs 5 FP to use in battle instead of 4. And this is going to rank right alongside Quake Hammer. This badge, with a moderate cost, is also consistent damage, but it's also useful in the pit, just like with Quake Hammer, but it's also great when going through the Pit of 100 Trials without any badge swapping, because it's a medium damage piercing move. With that said, it does rank above Quake Hammer because of its higher damage output. Next badge, we have Defense Focus. And actually, I'm going to rank Power Focus alongside it, even though you can't obtain them at the same time. They are obtainable inside a cave at a crossroad between Koopa Bros Fortress and Chapter 7, but it's obtainable, but Defense Focus is obtainable as soon as you obtain Sushi, which is in Chapter 5. But both of them are F tier badges. These are both 3 BP badges, which increase either Mario's defense or attack by 1 for 3 turns, with each deep focus adding 1 turn for the effect, and group focus can also apply the buff. The reason why these are both in F tier, however, is because a 3 BP investment for what's only a temporary boost is not worth it. And that's for both fronts. In the case of Defense Focus, it's outclassed by the other plus defense badges, let alone the fractional reductions, because it's not immediate. For Power Focus, it's the same reason, except it's outclassed by all the plus attack badges in the game, period. And that's unfortunate because they're really good in concept. Following up that, we have Weather Shield. This protects Mario from most environmental effects, which are a new addition in Dark Star. This is also obtainable as soon as you get Sushi in Chapter 5. But, unlike the previous 2 badges mentioned, this one does have use. But we're going to rank it below Flower Health. This is a C tier badge because it gives you protection from critical environmental effects at the point that you get it. The volcano in Chapter 5 decreases Mario's defense by 1 every 2 rounds, whereas Flower Fields is enveloped in a poison fog, which deals 3 damage to Mario every round, and then the Shiver Snowfield decreases Mario's attack by 1 every round. So, at the time that you get this is very good in that scope, and while it is critical to use in that scope, it's held back by its limited scope. So that is why it is a C tier badge. Another badge that we have that's also niche, but even more so, is Fire Shield. This decreases Mario's damage taken by fire attacks by 1, and it also allows Mario to safely jump on fiery enemies with this badge. This badge, however, only gets ranked above Smart Stomp. The reason why this badge is D tier is because it helps push the Lava Piranha fight to the limit, but it's generally outclassed by Ice Power's attack boost, and it has no scope beyond reducing the damage from fire attacks, so it's not that good. Next is Truth Stomp. This allows Mario to jump on an invisible enemy, and it's also stronger against enemies that have active buffs. The base damage value is 4, 6, or 8, depending on your rank of boots. And as I mentioned, it pierces invisibility, which grants +1 damage. It also deals +1 damage for each active attack or defense buff that the target has, but it does not pierce enemy defense buffs. The max damage boost that you could get for active buffs is +6, and this is for 75 coins after completing Chapter 5. And this is going to the very top of D tier. Get out of there, Spike Shield. The main use for Truth Stomp is piercing invisibility. It's the only attack that Mario has which can do this. And while this generally makes it the best attack to use against Covert Guy, who goes invisible after taking damage, its scope is basically none beyond that. Following that is Super Smash Charge, and this is the last badge that's going into F tier. And this is a powered up version of Smash Charge. So you charge Mario's hammer by 3 for the next hammer attack, but it still shares the same charge boost as +6 at +6. This is 2 BP and costs 4 FP to use in battle. The issue is that it's outclassed by both its stronger and weaker counterparts. The former is obtainable much earlier, allowing a niche for it, whereas the latter is obtainable just 1 chapter later and is immediate with its charge boost. So if you need the immediacy, you're going to use its stronger counterpart. So that's why it's F tier. The middle ground is just not good enough. Following that, we have Mega Quake, which costs 200 coins to buy from Ralph. Also, Super Smash Charge is 100, which I didn't mention. Mega Quake is going to go right alongside the other Quake badges. And this gives consistent damage against all enemies with the higher cost. Its initial damage value is 3 or 6, depending on whether or not you land the action command, and just like with the other hammering Quake moves, it is regardless of hammer. And while this badge is not quite as useful in the pit as the other two, it can solve the anti-squad on 3x difficulty, even if you didn't obtain Quake Jump in Chapter 7. So that's why it gets ranked as the top of those 3, but they are honestly interchangeable. You could rank them in any order. Next we have Dual Smash, and Dual Smash does not go into C, it goes to A tier. So Dual Smash lets you attack one enemy twice with the hammer, and the initial damage values of the 2 strikes are 4 and 7 respectively. Those are fixed values, and that is with the Ultra Hammer. This is 3 BP to use, and it costs 8 FP to use in battle. This is an A tier badge because it is good for similar reasons, yet opposite reasons as to why Mega Smash is good. Mega Smash is good against high defense enemies or with low plus attack investment, but dual smash is superior with high attack investment or against enemies with low defense. So, they're similar yet opposite. And actually, I'm going to rank Mega Smash now because that goes right below it. So Mega Smash has the same BP and FP cost, which is 3 and 8, but it received a huge buff in that its damage is now base of hammer plus 8, whereas in base it's base of hammer plus 4. So that's why it goes right alongside it. So they're similar yet opposite. One badge that is kind of just a load of malarkey, Flame Smash. This lets you attack the front enemy with the hammer, with its initial base value for damage being base of hammer plus 2, but it also has that additional fire element that makes it stronger against enemies weak to fire. But it deals normal damage if the target is immune or not weak to fire. It costs 75 coins to get after Chapter 5. That said, this badge is only good against enemies that are weak to fire. And that trait does give it a small niche for Chapter 7 enemies, such as the Crystal King. But beyond that, it's generally a more expensive Power Smash. It is bottom of D tier though, because of that extra weakness that it can strike. Following that, we have the Flower badges in Flower Fields. So we're in Chapter 6 now. Next is Flower Power. This gives Mario plus 2 attack if his FP is maximum. If Flower Health is equipped, this effect does change to instead take effect at max HP. And in addition, if Flower Coins is equipped, Flower Power instead takes effect at 999 coins. This is 4 BP to equip. And the reason why this is a B tier badge is because getting that extra plus attack. Give me a sec here. There we go. It's a good plus attack badge in general, but its best use is when you're only going to attack once with Mario each turn. While it's generally better to use Power Plus, if you are reliant on hustle strats, Flower Power is superior in Immortal builds because of its higher benefit when its condition is met. And another badge that's going to be ranked pretty highly is going to be Flower Burst. Flower Burst, I'm going to just rank now. This badge goes above Dodge Master. Flower Burst gives -3 move costs if Mario has full FP, but just like with Flower Health, the effect takes place at max HP if it is equipped instead. Flower Burst giving a -3 move cost under its condition makes it a good badge to use, especially if you're able to spare 2 BP. Its best synergy, just like with Flower Power, is the Immortal build, but it's generally easier to slot in because of its lower BP cost. That said, it is a bit more limited in its scope, and I will talk a bit more about it when I get to a later badge. But Flower Burst synergizes better if you need your star power. I'll allude to that. Following that, we have Flower Shield. Flower Shield is a D tier badge, and this ranks right above where Multi-Bounce is. So Flower Shield reduces incoming damage by 50%, but you lose FP when you get hit. The amount of FP lost is equal to 2 times the damage it negates. If Last Stand is active, this badge instead reduces Mario's incoming damage by 1/3, and if you don't have enough FP, this badge will simply stop working. In regards to fractional reductions, this badge is applied first, and it is a 4 BP badge. The damage reduction of the effect of this badge is very good, but it's D tier because its consistency decreases a lot when it consumes so much FP just from being used. The lower consistency makes it much more difficult to fit in other builds, but it's not F tier because it does have good use against the unstable star, since that fight requires you to lower Mario's max HP as well as act fast in order to complete the fight quickly. So that's why it's D tier. It's limited, but in that one use, it is really good. And following that, we have Dizzy Stomp. This follows in the trail of Static Stomp and Sleep Stomp. It costs 1 BP and 4 FP to use, and the enemy gets afflicted with Dizzy using 2 regular jumps for its damage. The reason this one ranks above Static and Sleep Stomp, though, is because the Dizzy is a good option to use against enemies that possess a stop immunity, but are vulnerable to Dizzy. It's good against the Dark partners that are immune to Stop in low level Pit in particular. But with that said, in terms of status, it is still inferior to inflicting Stop. And so we can't rank it above D tier, because even though that low level usage is nice, Stop is generally still going to be better in most cases. Following that, we have Super Jump Charge. This is the jump equivalent to Super Smash Charge, increasing Mario's jump by 3 for its next attack. And this is 2 BP and now 5 FP to use. This badge is useful to defeat Magic Bro when you have just 18 BP for low level pit fights, but it's not really useful beyond that. And as such, it is very low D tier, only ranking above Shrink Stomp. The next badge is an absolute banger. We have Mega Rush. Mega Rush, while in the base game, is not in the same spot. Mega Rush is now in Forever Forest, but you need the Ultra Boots in order to obtain it. And its effect is still the same, however, increasing Mario's attack by 4 if he is in peril, which is 1 HP left. I mentioned Perfect Peril many times, but this badge is the most mandatory in those builds because of that extra huge attack boost. And this badge has more availability compared to its counterpart. It has more use than its counterpart due to its higher benefit, but it's got more accessibility compared to a badge that pairs alongside it that we'll get to later. The fact that you can set your max HP to 1, however, in Dark Star Edition is a huge buff to this badge. But despite that, its use outside of the Perfect Peril build is still relatively limited. But that said, it is more applicable than what Mega Saver is, because of that earlier accessibility. And as such, it ranks in A tier alongside Perfect Rush. Following that, we have Auto Dodge. This is obtained by defeating the Master 4 for the first time, and it allows Mario's guarding to be done automatically. And this is a 2 BP badge, which ranks at the bottom of C tier. This badge is really good when you have really difficult attacks that need to be blocked, that absolutely need to be blocked. So notably, for example, Huff and Puff EX's wind attack has to be blocked, otherwise you lose FP and you lose attack. But Auto Dodge guarantees that it gets blocked. It's also critical against the Master 4 himself, ironically, because if you don't block the Master 4's attacks, they'll deal double damage, and his Fatal Strikes deal 99 damage if you don't guard them. So, and this badge's best synergy is PFD down, because that effectively gives you a power plus, while also protecting Mario essentially from most status. But with that said, keep in mind that Auto Dodge's protection does not extend to your partner. You still have to guard with the partner no matter what. But in its scope, it is a really good badge to use, but it's limited beyond that scope. And so, it gets bottom of C. The next badge that we're talking about is Stop Smash. So, this attacks one enemy with the hammer, and the targeted enemy gets afflicted with Stop. And this costs 200 coins to equip. 200 coins to buy, and it's a 2 BP badge that costs 5 FP to use. This badge is D tier because it is your best means of inflicting stop in file codes prior to gaining access to timeout. However, this badge is outclassed by Stellar Nova in a standard curse file, but its usage in file codes is what saves it from F tier, because in file codes it's really good. The next two badges that we'll go over are Ultra Smash Charge and Ultra Jump Charge. So these are the strongest equivalent of charges. They both cost 3 BP to equip, with Smash costing 10 FP and Jump costing 12 FP. But they instantly charge the Jump or the Hammer to the max of +6. And while much more expensive than their counterparts, both by the way are bought from Ralph's shop after completing Chapter 6 for 200 coins. And while much more expensive than their counterparts, this badge benefits from the fact that it gives instant setup. The immediacy of this makes it useful against the Master 3, and in the case of Ultra Jump Charge in file codes, it's also good to use against Covert Guy. In the case of Ultra Smash Charge, it's more limited in scope, but in file codes, it's also good against Robo-Toad, since its effect is compounded with Dual Smash. Oh boy, the next badge is going to be a doozy. So we finally get to Mega Bounce. This is 250 coins from Ralph's shop, and it costs 3 BP to equip and 10 FP to use in battle. You jump on one enemy continuously until you miss the action command. It allows up to 101 bounces with the Ultra Boots, 99 with the Super Boots, but each bounce is more difficult. The initial damage value is the same as Power Bounce, which is base of jump +1, but each following strike is 2/3 the strength of the previous instead of 75%, but it still keeps the minimum damage value of 1. One thing to note is that Ride-On hard caps this move at 6 bounces. Now, I'm going to admit immediately that I have a love-hate relationship with this badge. On one hand, I hate that it actually ends up being the solution most of the time, because it does admittedly feel kind of repetitive when it is the solution. But with that said, it's ranked in S tier because there's a good reason why it was used so much, and that's because it has the highest damage against a single target in the game, especially after completing Chapter 6. And although you won't realistically get anywhere near 101 bounces with Mega Bounce, it still has a minimum damage value of 1 on each bounce, which makes it very strong when mastered, even though it has a higher skill floor too. But do note that some enemies, such as Final Bowser, have a much faster Mega Bounce speed, and I want to be clear that this placement does not consider the Mega Bounce exploit. So, that's why I mentioned 99 with the Super Boots, because this badge placement is not considering the exploit. And then the last badge to be purchased from Ralph is Dark Smash. This is a 2 BP badge that costs 6 FP in battle, but this gets ranked right below Power Bounce. This is an A tier badge. You attack one enemy with the hammer, with its initial damage value being base of hammer +1, but the base power increases with a damage multiplier of up to 3x, the lower the enemy's remaining HP percentage is. Do note that all plus attack effects and badges are included after the multiplier when calculating damage. Dark Smash dealing increasing damage makes it a good badge to use when you need to consolidate BP when attacking. As it deals increasing damage, it's generally capable of making up for lack of attack badges by itself. It synergizes, however, with Mega Smash, because that makes up for its weakness of dealing low damage to enemies that have a high percentage of HP remaining. So, this is a really good badge. Don't underestimate this one. And then the last Ralph badge is Flower Coins. So this allows Mario to use FP moves, Mario and partner to use FP moves, using coins instead. And the coin cost is 5 times the FP cost. So a move that costs 3 FP will cost 15 coins, for example. Now, Flower Coins, as you're seeing, is B tier. The reason why is because while it isn't too common to see, Flower Coins is an incredible ace in the hole as it enables you to play fights more efficiently. The immediacy of having what is the equivalent of 200 FP enables strategies that standard builds can't execute, notably Hallway Bowser on Triple Curse. Flower Coins can also enable you to use a more specialized item build to solve a specific fight too. And low-level builds also benefit from this, as Flower Coins can allow you to eliminate 10 levels by itself by dropping your max FP all the way down to 0. It best synergizes with Perfect Peril builds to get the highest longevity possible, but do keep in mind that the weakness of Perfect Peril builds is that they're not designed for long fights. I note this because Flower Coins can worsen that weakness, but it also emphasizes the strengths too. Also worth noting about Flower Coins is that it negates Flower Health and Flower Burst. And as I noted with Flower Power, it activates at 999 coins with this badge. And this is a 4 BP badge. So it's B tier because of that powerful ace in the hole setup. Because that emphasis of strengths in Perfect Peril is what makes Flower Coins so good to use when used right. And this leads me to Quake Jump. So Quake Jump is a new badge. It combines Power Bounce and Mega Quake. So it's 3 BP and it costs 16 FP to use in battle. You attack all enemies on the ground and ceiling with Quake Jump, with its initial damage value on the first strike being Basic Jump. It doesn't get the innate +1 of Power Bounce and Mega Bounce. But with that said, each following strike is 75% the strength of the previous, rounded down, and has the same minimum damage value of 1. Worth noting about Quake Jump, this attack caps you at 3 bounces, regardless of the enemy. And just like the other Quake moves, this attack pierces defense, but unlike the Quake hammer moves, this also bypasses Quake immunities. And you can defeat Permafrost Sky and Shiver City during the Penguin Murder Mystery in Chapter 7 to obtain this badge. Or you get it by defeating the Anti-Squad in Chapter 9. This is a solid A tier badge, ranking right above Power Bounce. Full stop, this is the strongest AoE attack in the game. Despite the massive cost and necessity to fully commit to building around it, the damage potential against multiple targets is too great to ignore. The ability to pierce defense makes it consistent against all enemies affected, and the ability to bypass Quake immunities means that even Green Ninja Koopa, who normally is immune to Quake damage, is also affected by this attack, in both the rematch and EX fights. One thing I do want to note about Quake Jump is that it does have a bug associated with it. If the last bounce move you used is Mega Bounce, Quake Jump will have the same damage fall off as Mega Bounce, which is 2/3 the strength. And that does persist until you either use Power Bounce or until you reset the game. But even despite that, if you simply just consider that if you're just going to save right before a fight, then you could just Quake Jump. You could just set up Quake Jump that way, and you'll have the higher damage. This leads me to Mega Jump. This got a buff similar to Mega Smash. It costs 3 BP still, but its damage boost was increased from +4 to +6 on one jump. So with the Ultra Boots, this will deal 12 damage. This is a D tier badge, however. Mega Jump did not age well because of the Mega Bounce strats. And because of that, it struggles to stand out. It also costs 7 FP now instead of 6, but FP cost isn't really that bad. But yeah, it's kind of sad that it's still, despite the buffs, not that good. Following that, we have P down, D up. This decreases the damage that Mario deals and takes by 1. And this is obtained in the Crystal Palace in the same area as base. This badge stands out from the other plus defense badges though, as it's the only one that costs only 2 BP to use. The loss of 1 attack, however, hurts, and you generally need additional plus defense badges to gain this one's benefit as you start gaining access to the fractional reductions. And that's what I meant by fall off. I didn't want to mention it until now. But despite that, it still gets ranked into C tier because it does have good use. Notably, it helps with defense against Tub of Blubba EX on Triple Curse difficulty. The next badge is Triple Dip. This is now a 5 BP badge, which costs 10 FP to use in battle, and its effect is still the same, allowing Mario to use 3 items in one action. And it is also similar, placed in the same area. Triple Dip ranks top of A tier, near top, because while not as universally applicable as its counterpart, Triple Dip still has a lot of the same strengths as Double Dip, but as noted with Double Dip, Triple Dip can execute strategies that Double Dip is not capable of matching. The only reason Triple Dip is not S tier is because it's mainly held back by its much higher cost. 5 BP is a pretty big investment. And this leads to P up D down, the counterpart of P down D up. And this ranks right behind Power Plus now. So this increases the damage that Mario deals and takes by 1, and is obtained even further in the Crystal Palace, and also costs only 2 BP to equip. So, P up D down. While Stellar Power is also a plus attack badge that only costs 2 BP to use, P up D down is far superior to it because the downside of losing 1 defense can basically be completely mitigated simply by just guarding. And it also makes it quite easy to fit if you need a plus attack badge. One thing to note, though, about it is that there is a notable negative synergy with it, in the form of hustle and invisibility item combos. If you use P up D down, it'll make those items deal 1 damage to Mario, which hurts its usage in perfect peril builds. It is a minor negative synergy in the grand scheme of things, but it is one to consider. And in that regard, Feeling Fine will oftentimes take its place now when you need to use the Hustle Invis item combo. This leads me to, finally, a Chapter 8 badge, and what better way than to say it's Stellar Burst. So this decreases star power cost by 1 at max SP, and this reduction is applied after Stellar Nova and Dark Saber, but is incompatible with Stellar Flowers. And this is obtained in Chapter 8 by going up the stairs once, and then going to the left house at Star Haven, and the badge is on a chair inside that house. And now this badge is D tier. It's generally not advised to use, because you will typically plan strategies around not needing it. But it does have a niche, and that niche is that it helps you run through the Pit of 100 Trials without needing badge swapping. And because of that, it's going to rank right above Mega Jump. That niche is a valuable one, considering that you don't allow yourself badge swapping in that sense. But if you did, it wouldn't be used there. The next badge is Last Chance. This allows Mario to survive a lethal hit once per battle, and notably this effect is distinct from miracle effects, and as such resets every battle. You obtain Last Chance by defeating Junior Troopa back in his playground after beating him the 6th time in Bowser's Castle. Last Chance is bottom of A tier. The ability to survive any one lethal strike per battle makes Last Chance a very good badge to fit, especially in Perfect Peril. And while it isn't used much outside of that, since you don't need this badge if you're not concerned about taking lethal damage, it always has good synergy. And it's always a badge worth considering if lethal damage is something you do fear. And I should note that its obvious best synergy is with the Perfect Peril build. You could use it to fail a hustle spell safely, for example. So, it is A tier, and it does cost 3 BP to equip. Stellar Burst, by the way, is 1 BP. And then the final attacking badge that we have is Recoil Throw. So this lets you hammer an enemy from a range, but its initial damage value is much stronger. It's base of hammer plus 8, which is the same as Mega Smash. However, Mario takes recoil damage in return, with the base damage being base of hammer. The recoil damage can be guarded, but it's increased with plus attack badges and multiplied with curse badges. And because of that increased damage taken, this badge is D tier, gonna rank right above Stellar Burst. Just like with Stellar Burst, it's not advised to use because of that increasing recoil damage. But it does have areas in which, despite the drawback, its talents does get suited very well. It's also great in the Pit of 100 Trials with no badge swapping, because it can OHKO Zatars without needing up and away, Zatars or Z-Stars. Those enemies are notable for being immune to all non-lethal damage, which means you either one-hit KO them, or you never damage them. The catch is that because Perfect Peril is the best way to go through the pit, it will burn Last Chance if you use it. But unlike with Stellar Burst, Recoil Throw can also deal good damage to the Light Bones during the Light Rush, because they have 8 points of unpierceable defense. But beyond that, it's not advised to use Recoil Throw. And that hurts because it's actually a good badge when not using curses. Now, I mentioned that there was a badge to allude to when I was talking about Flower Burst, and that badge was Darksaber. Darksaber ranks right above it. So that gives, this is another 2 BP badge. It gives -1 move costs permanently, but in return, it doubles the cost of star powers. The reason this badge is B tier is because of that consistent value that it gives. The lower BP cost makes Darksaber generally a better version of Flower Saber, and it's why Flower Saber is ranked so much lower, even despite Darksaber's drawback. Its benefit is also always active, so you can be assured that it has value so long as you're using moves that consume FP, which, pretty much why would you not be doing so? It fills a similar role as Flower Burst, so these two are kind of similar in this sense, but neither one outclasses the other. Darksaber synergizes better if you don't need your star power, whereas Flower Burst does. Darksaber is also better inside the Temple of Darkness, where you literally cannot use your star power. Following Darksaber, we have Dark Power. And this is another B tier badge. So this gives Mario +1 attack if his star power amount in relation to his maximum is 25% or lower. But if it's 50% or higher, it will instead decrease Mario's attack by 1. And this is B tier because while Dark Power can be more difficult to use, since its positive effect is only active with 25% or lower remaining star power, Power Plus is generally easier to use and obtainable earlier as a result. But in short fights, or inside the Temple of Darkness, Dark Power is superior to Power Plus due to its lower BP cost. So, while harder to use, in the cases where it does apply, it's basically a cheaper Power Plus. Following up that, we have SP+. SP Plus gives Mario 1 extra point of star power. So, this means that if you have 7 star power already, this will increase it to 8. And SP Plus, if you were ranking solely based on the standard curse file, this badge would absolutely belong in the farm, at the bottom of F tier. But because file codes are also considered, this is a D tier badge. In a standard curse file, like I said, it would be F tier by itself because it's obtained far too late for its use to justify. You have to defeat the unstable star, which is a Chapter 9 fight, to obtain this badge. But here's the thing about file codes. In file codes, SP Plus has a unique additional trait that no other badge possesses. It gives you access to the next star power when you have it equipped before Chapter 8. So, for example, if you have it in Chapter 6, you can use timeout during Chapter 6, whereas otherwise you wouldn't be able to. And because of that, even without having a particular chapter completed, that unique trait gives SP Plus its niche, and it's why it gets a D tier placement despite that. The next badge is an absolute banger. We have Stellar Nova. This boosts the power of the next star power you use. The boost causes star powers to have double the cost and the power. The boost lasts 1 turn and cannot be stacked, and it can be found in the star power menu in battle, and it costs 1 SP to use and consumes 0 turns to use. You get Stellar Nova by talking to Merlot one more time after buying all of his Star Piece badges to be rewarded with this one. And as such, this badge becomes available as soon as you reach Sparky Town in Chapter 9. The extreme versatility of Stellar Nova makes it one of the best badges in the game as long as you can use star power in the fight, and that's why it's getting A tier. Boosting timeout, for example, with this move creates the ultimate generator of free turns. Boosting Starstorm gets you 14 piercing damage on all enemies, and there's even passive ways to use this badge. You can use it to automatically maintain Dark Power and Dark Shield, since it costs 0 turns to use. Its only real negative synergy is the Temple of Darkness, since you can't use the Star Spirit abilities at the temple. And it's the only other issue about it in file codes is that you need access to good star power abilities to make use of it. It, officially speaking, doesn't get any potential use until you've cleared at least 3 chapters, which is when you can get Stellar Nova Lullaby and Stellar Nova Refresh. But that's specifically in file codes. Like I said, its best use is with timeout, but it's also good with Smooch, and it can even be used with Up and Away to make it automatically delete the first enemy if that enemy can be affected. The next badge is Mega Saver, and this gives -3 move costs if Mario is in peril. So this is the FP Saver equivalent to Mega Rush, and this is another A tier badge. This badge, similarly to Mega Rush, is also mandatory in the Perfect Peril build because of how much of an impact it has on only a 1 BP badge. Similar to Mega Rush, it makes it a top priority badge to fit when running Perfect Peril, but its usage similarly is also limited. That said, Perfect Peril does have a decent amount of use, and its criticality in that build is what justifies an A tier placement. And this badge is obtained inside a red question mark block just in front of the Temple of Darkness in Chapter 9. Following that, we have Ride-On. Ride-On makes it so that the action command, when used on offense, works every time Mario attacks. But it also hard caps Mega Bounce at 6 bounces. And because of that, this is a D tier badge, ranking just above Mega Jump. It's good to use if you have a spare BP, thanks to its ability to take human error out of the equation. But, with that said, Rhydon is only really good to use with Quake Jump, due to its unusual action command timing. It's horrible with Mega Bounce because of it forcing a hard cap with that move. And as such, that's why you will never see it alongside Mega Bounce. And if you're using it with other moves, you'd be better off spending the BP elsewhere. So its best use is with Quake Jump as a result. Next is Item Saver. This is obtainable as soon as you actually get inside the Temple of Darkness, because it requires you to complete all 75 recipes in order to gain access to. Item Saver is an 8 BP badge to use, and what it does is it makes it so that every third item you use in battle is a freebie, so meaning it will not get consumed, and items that would produce other items also wouldn't do that if it would produce a freebie. This is a mid-B tier badge. The reason why Item Saver is B tier is because this badge can get some serious mileage thanks to its ability to extend the longevity of the items you bring. It also enables you to use a more specialized item build to solve majorly problematic fights such as the Light Partners. Its usage, however, is held back by its 8 BP cost. In order to accommodate it, you have to trade out other utility to make it work. With that said, it is a badge to not ignore, and this is another badge to use with the Badge Stone equipped, because that 8 BP cost gets eliminated essentially, and now it'll only be 1. So it's similar to Flower Fanatic in that regard. And then there's one last badge that we have to rank, and that is Dark Shield. Dark Shield is the shield counterpart to Dark Power. This reduces Mario's incoming damage by 1/3 if his star power amount in relation to his maximum is 25% or less. But if it's 50% or higher, it will instead increase the incoming damage taken by 50%. And in terms of the fractional reductions, the badge applies after Stellar Shield, but before Lackluster's Cloud9. In terms of the fractional reductions, Dark Shield is the second best one to have, only behind Perfect Stand. And it is a mid-A tier, and while its drawback may seem annoying, if it's used properly, you will never actually see this drawback occur. And this badge is arguably the single best badge inside the Temple of Darkness, because there, its effect is always permanently active. Its use also expands in file codes too, unlike Stellar Nova, because when you use it prior to completing Chapter 1, Dark Shield is also permanently active then, because 0 out of 0 star power equals 0% star power. And just like Perfect Stand, its only negative synergy is the Perfect Peril build. But the reason why it only gets A tier, whereas Perfect Stand gets S tier, is because Dark Shield is only obtainable after defeating the Dark Rush for the first time. And that does it. That's the entire badge tier list, in my opinion. So, there's a full screenshot for you to take from me, if you want to use this as a reference for yourself when pushing curse fights. And that is going to be the conclusion of this video and this stream. So, thank you for watching.